I'm not going to start with a joke, but I'm going to start with a story that maybe you'll find funny, but maybe you'll learn something from it too. Back in the early 1990s, I built a new clean room for a company that I was working with. It was designed as a Class 1000 clean room, ISO 6 clean room, and had it up and running. I validated it and qualified it for use for making some products for clinical trials. It had it up and running for a couple of months, and we hired a new gentleman to come and work for us who actually had a PhD and wanted to work in manufacturing and work in a clean room environment. So we put him through all of our GMP training that we were required to put him through, and he did just fine. He was probably one of our best employees that we had for quite some time. After about 6 months of operating the clean room and trending the data in the clean room with the particulate counts, I started noticing that we were getting some very high counts and out-of-specification counts. So I contacted some of my vendor friends, and they're probably one of the best resources you can use to get information from, and asked a woman to come in who was had come very highly recommended to help me diagnose some of the problems that I had in my clean room. She showed up at my door. It was really nice because she followed all the procedures to enter a clean room that you're supposed to have. She had on no jewelry, no makeup. She was wearing the appropriate clothing to come into a clean room, to be able to go in and gown up and enter the clean room and help me diagnose some of the issues that I was having in the clean room. My biggest problem was nobody recognized her when she showed up to the door because she didn't have her makeup on and she just didn't look the same as she had before. So that's maybe my little bit of a joke. But it's a true story. She came into the clean room, she gowned up, she did everything the way she's supposed to do. She walks into the clean room, and I have some operations going on in the clean room, and she walks up to this gentleman, and he sticks his hand out. "Hey, how you doing?" And tries to shake her hand. And she said, looks at me, and she said, "I think I know where part of your problem is." And he said, "What's wrong?" She says, "You're not supposed to be shaking hands." He says, "I'm just trying to be friendly." So that was one issue that we happened to diagnose within that clean room. She observed him for about 2 or 3 hours, and we found several other issues with this particular gentleman. He didn't work for me much longer after that. He's now working in the RTP area for a company who has representatives in this room, and I won't say who it is. But if it does nothing more than make you go look at your folks and the kind of behavior that they're doing in the clean room, the kind of behavior that they're performing in the clean room, then I hope it helps that I told you that. The last I knew, he was working for a very large company in the RTP area. I'm from Greenville, North Carolina. I've lived there for 26 years, but I've lived in many other locations across the state of North Carolina too. But just so you know, this afternoon when I speak, I have to leave to go back to Greenville and try to be there by 5. Going on 440 around Raleigh may be a little bit of a challenge. Let's talk a little bit about what I want you to think about as far as clean room behavior today. First thing I want you to think about are sources, not only environmental sources, but our behavior in the clean room and what sources we have on us that can impact the cleanliness of the room. I was really glad that Mark mentioned this morning that our workers in a clean room, they contribute the most to the contamination in a clean room. And if you don't think that's true, I'll tell you one other little story. Does anyone know what a shedder is? Okay, there are people who shed more particles than other people. And I had another little story I was going to tell you, and I decided I wasn't, but I'm going to anyway, because I'm the only thing standing between you and lunch, and I don't want to run over. Had a gentleman come into my clean room that, I don't know why it's always the guys, come into the clean room and my particle counts would go out of specification every time he was in the clean room. He would leave, and within 30 minutes of recycling the air through the filters, the counts would be back to normal and well within specifications. He'd come back in after a break or lunch, and the counts would go back up. I couldn't manufacture the entire day. I could not manufacture. Shedding or shedders occurs. And unfortunately, the employment laws don't allow us to discriminate, but they can allow us to relocate people. Whatever you do, if you have a shedder in your clean room, get them out. And you'll see in a minute why, because the skin cells that shedders shed contain a lot of things that can be harmful to your product. Okay? Another thing to consider is the behavior in the clean room. What is acceptable and what is not? I don't have time between now and 12 o'clock to tell you everything that is and is not, but I'm going to try and highlight some of the more important things. The behavioral measures that we can institute in our facilities to help keep our clean room under control. And that's part of our good manufacturing practices too, CGMP. Our training. Our training is probably the most important step that we can take in our facilities to keep our rooms under control. Okay? A lot of people don't realize that some of the things they do, like shaking hands or doing jumping jacks or putting his feet up on the counters and falling asleep, that's why he wasn't with me much longer after that, can impact the clean room. And what we do as companies to fail to prevent that contamination. And today and this morning and this afternoon, I'm not going to talk so much about non-viable particulate. I'm going to talk more about viable particulate. You heard a lot about the non-viables today. I'm going to talk more about that can grow. Okay? This afternoon, what I'm going to talk about more than anything else is media fills. Does everybody know what media fills is? Okay, I'm going to talk more about media fills this afternoon and how we can mitigate our process issues that relate to more viable particles, viable contaminants. All right, we learned about clean rooms just a few minutes ago and the parts of the facilities and everything that goes in the clean room and where the sources of contamination might be. Our facilities, obviously, I don't need to repeat that, but the walls, ceilings, floors, and everything that is part of that facility can contribute to it. There are sometimes we have to have tools in the clean room. One of the things I always did is if I had to have tools in my clean room, I had a dedicated set of tools that stayed in my classified space that I would use to make minor repairs in my clean room. And that's something I highly recommend that everybody do, if you have to have it at all. The people, and that's what I'm going to talk about more today. And then there's some solvents and fluids that can also contribute. But the people and all those things that you see up there are things that I'm going to talk about more than anything else. And those are just some examples. The behavioral things that we can look at that people do are very simple. And we take a lot of this for granted. Poor hygiene is probably the most common thing that I have found in my years of working in the industry that has been a problem in the clean room. I see people that will come in one day, they look nice, they're showered, you can tell their hair's clean. The next day they look like they hadn't showered, not even combed their hair. You know that they're not taking care of themselves. And there's sometimes I've seen 2, 3, 4 days go by and people haven't done the right thing. And I can see, based on some of the data that I have observed, that I've had higher particulate counts when that happens with these people. I typically had 10, 12 people in the clean room at one time for filling operations. Unclean hair, facial hair is a problem for men, some women too. Dirty hands and use of makeup. You don't know how many times I have said to a woman, you can't come with makeup on. Oh, I promise you I'm not wearing makeup. And I'll hand them a wiper and say, okay, show me. And wipe your face. And you just would not believe the makeup that comes off of. Makeup contributes a lot to the particulate in a clean room. Okay? I teach part-time too at one of the local community colleges in the East, Pitt Community College. And I have a clean room there, and I train students how to gown and how to behave in my clean room at Pitt Community College. Very similar to what they have upstairs here. They'll teach you about aseptic processing here at the BTEC. Well, I do this more for microbiology students, environmental monitoring technicians, and even mechanics, so that they can learn how to behave in a clean room if they have to go in and repair a piece of equipment that's in a clean room. But the point I'm trying to make is that doing this training, I have seen numerous people try to put one over on me, okay? And they don't know that this little handheld laser particle counter that I have sitting here is running and can test the environment while they're in there in the clean room doing some of the activities that I have them doing. And they don't know what that is. And then I show them the way it's supposed to be at rest. And then I show them how their behavior affects it by showing them the effects of the particles. Some of the other things that we don't do, we don't have people do, is clean themselves before they go into a clean room. Hand washing is very important. Now, I'm very fortunate to have visited a lot of the companies' clean rooms that are here, but I'll be happy to come see your clean room and try and help you diagnose some of the problems that you may be having in your clean room, and no charge to you. Just give me a call. But I have been fortunate to see some of the clean rooms for the companies that are represented in this room today, and I'm happy to say that most of the clean rooms I've visited, everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing, and I'm happy to see that. Some of the other personal habits and behaviors that I want to talk about, one in particular, smoking. I don't know whether your companies have policies in place to prevent people from smoking before they go into a clean room. You are still exhaling that smoke for 30 minutes after you've had a cigarette. And those cigarettes, I'm going to show you the particle sizes of that smoke that's coming out of somebody's mouth after they've had a cigarette. Anyone who smokes should wait 30 minutes, at least 30 minutes, before they go into a clean room. I'm also recommending that if you don't have a smoke-free campus at your facility, that you implement one. I'll tell you, there's one manufacturer in Greenville, North Carolina, who has a smoke-free policy on their campus. You're not even allowed to have cigarettes in your car, in your parking lot. And if you're caught, you can be terminated. You wouldn't believe how many people during their lunch breaks leave the facility, go out to Highway 11, Memorial Drive in Greenville, for those of you who are familiar with the city of Greenville, and meet their friends who bring them their cigarettes at lunch. And they'll stand out there under the overpass and smoke during lunch because they can't live without a cigarette. I used to smoke 2 packs a day too, so I quit because when I got into this industry, I couldn't handle that. But smoking is a major contributor to particulate in clean rooms, even if you're wearing a mask. Okay? Unclean clothing. The companies that are represented in this room, I'm happy to say, most of the companies that have clean rooms have dedicated scrubs for your employees that go into a clean room, so that's good. No shoes or socks. People showing up without shoes and socks. I mean, it's unbelievable some of the things that you see people coming to work wearing. And it all happens because of a lack of training. And over the years, I've actually developed a pretty good understanding of what training programs should look like to enter clean rooms. Handling your pets before you go to work. Watches, jewelry, and other items. I started a new class at Pitt Community College on Wednesday night. And I told the students in the class, you will be going into my clean room. I said to one girl who happened to be sitting off to my right, I said, you will not be going into my clean room with all that jewelry on. She had about 5 or 6 earrings here, a spike through her nose or through her ear that went from one side to the other, and 2 rings in her lip. I said, you might as well drop this class now if you're not willing to take that out. She said she would. She needed to have the class. So those are the kinds of things that personal behavior, and there's others here that I won't talk about, But those kinds of behaviors that we have to watch for people that are working in clean rooms. And one of the things that we try to do in the community college system is educate these students before they come into the workforce as to what the appropriate behaviors are working in an aseptic manufacturing facility. Okay, I mentioned before that you don't know what comes from people's skin as they shed. Just from somebody spitting. And when I talk, I sometimes talk too fast and I'll see spit fly out. I hope I don't hit anyone with it. But the chemical contaminants alone from the spit that comes from your mouth can adversely affect some of the products that you're working with. So if they're not gowned properly and yet they have to communicate with their coworkers, they may be contaminating the product. Just your fingers, by leaving your fingerprints. If you put a hole in a sterile glove and you don't replace that glove, you're also releasing the contaminants. And they're, ladies and some men, they're your cosmetics. You would never believe how many men wear makeup on their face. I've seen it. It's unbelievable. Some of them have to, okay, for medical reasons. Dandruff. If you don't have your hair covered, you see people all the time in a clean room who have a hair cover on and a little piece of hairs hanging out. Look what comes from the hair, the dandruff that may be in your hair. Perspiration. That's why we keep clean rooms cold. DSM Pharmaceuticals in Greenville, North Carolina, keeps their clean room temperature at 56 degrees Fahrenheit. 56 degrees Fahrenheit. 2 years ago, an OSHA inspector came into their facility and said, it's too cold for those people in that clean room. You're going to have to turn the temperature up. And the director of sterile products, who happens to be a good friend of mine, said, no. And they said, we're going to make you do it. And the guy said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll make a deal with you. To the OSHA inspector, I said, oh, jeez, you don't do that. He said, to the OSHA inspector, he said, you survey. He said, I'm going to leave. He said, you survey all the people that work in this clean room. If you find one person on this shift who says that it's too cold, I'll turn it up. The OSHA inspector took him up on it and surveyed every one of the employees that was working in the clean room that day on that shift. And every one of them said, I wish they'd turn it down, because when I put this suit on, this gown on, it's hot even at 56 degrees Fahrenheit. Imagine a clean room at 68 degrees Fahrenheit and wearing a full gown with all the coverings, and you're sweating, and just somebody makes a mistake and exposes part of their skin to the environment. Now, what are the ideal conditions for bacterial growth? High temperature and humidity, right? Those, for any viable contaminant, those conditions are ideal. So if the OSHA inspector had said, you're going to turn this up, and by the way, he let them keep the temperature at 56. If you're going to turn this temperature up and increase the likelihood of people sweating and also promote growth of the viable contaminants within that room, and every clean room has viable contaminants, sorry, they do, then you're asking for trouble. You're asking for more trouble. And then the bacteria, yeasts, and molds that can also grow. Okay, I mentioned the size of the particles. The smoke can be up to 1 micron in size. I guess a filtered cigarette would probably not have as big a contaminant, but you never know what somebody smokes. The human skin flakes can be up to about 10 microns in size. We don't see those skin flakes, okay? But think about what kind of bacteria you have on your skin. Has anybody ever cultured your skin with some tryptic soy agar or something, a growth-promoting medium? Well, I'll tell you what, within 24 hours, you put it under the right conditions, within 24 hours, you can't even see the agar plate. If you've never done it, try it sometime. Even do it with an expired lot of Rodak plates if you have those in your facility. Try it sometime and see what grows on your skin. Mold, human hair, and pollen. Okay, now we know why we have HEPA filters in our clean rooms. HEPA filters will filter out most of those, but not all of those. Okay? Activities generated with your activity, or particles generated by activity. If anyone can move at 5 miles an hour today, I'd be really happy to see that. I can't barely get over 4 miles an hour on my treadmill. But look at the number of 0.3 micron particles you're shedding at 5 miles an hour. Look at the number of 0.3 micron particles you're shedding just sitting here watching me. Look at the number I'm shedding moving back and forth here, head, arm, neck, and leg motion. It's amazing how much we shed. And to think that a shedder sheds about 30 times that. And imagine them being in your clean room. My shedder ended up being the highest paid file clerk I had. I just want you to see the clean room classifications so that you can look at the particle size. It's 0.5 micron particles size, and think about what we just saw, which was the 0.3 micron particles. We're shedding those 0.3 micron particles, yet we're classifying our clean rooms on a 0.5 micron size. This has never made sense to me. Overseas, I think they do a much better job in Europe and Japan. But this is just something that boggles the mind when you see how many 0.3 micron size particles we have that could potentially become part of your product and grow, and we're classifying our clean room based on a 0.5 standard. Clean room behavior, what's acceptable and what is not, okay? First thing, proper gowning technique is something that we need to be training our people, and not just training them one time, not just on their date of hire or their first week or month of hire. They need to be trained in gowning, and they need to be certified to be able to gown and go into your clean room. Okay? That's the mistake I made with the guy that wanted to shake hands and do the jumping jacks. Why are you doing jumping jacks? So I could stay awake. 2 weeks later, I found him asleep. Maybe I should have let him do the jumping jacks. I don't know. Limit the talking and activities in a clean room. It's very important that we do as little activity in the clean room as possible that's not related to manufacturing of the product. Okay? I had somebody one time say, "Can I take a radio into the clean room?" No. Well, it'd make my day go by better if I could listen to music in the clean room. No. What's inside that radio? I don't know. And I'm not going to test it. I'm not going to find out. Smoking 30 minutes before you enter the clean room. These are basics. You should all know these basics. No jewelry, no cosmetics, no food, no drink, no gum, no cough drops, none of that. No grooming of your hair, no scratching. You don't know how many times I see. Hand rubbing, any other mannerisms that could potentially increase the amount of particles that are shed on your clothing or from your body. Sometimes your skin does get exposed even when you're wearing clean room garments. Only clean room approved pens and paper for recording data if you can do that. Some companies don't care about that. Okay, I did. I used non-shedding wipers to be able to clean surfaces. I had trained people that came in and cleaned my clean room. That was their entire job. They used to do it 2 and 3 times a day. That really helps reduce the amount of particulate and viable particulates in particular in your clean room if they're using the right disinfectants. And the entrance and exits remain closed for continued pressurization. I know that Jim said earlier that you should be able to keep your doors open and still maintain that pressure. Don't do it if you can help it. Yeah, you should still be able to maintain that pressure, but what if something happens while those doors are open and you don't know? what if somebody walks in one of those open doors? I always say an open door was meant to be walked in. That's why my bosses usually kept their doors closed, because they knew I was going to complain about something. Aseptic manufacturing. Make sure that you're training, make sure that the people understand the concepts of contamination and contamination control. We try to do that in the community college system. We try to make sure that they know the sources of contamination and how to prevent that contamination. Make sure that they understand the importance of good hygiene, proper gowning techniques, both donning the gowns and doffing the gowns, because taking the gowns off, people are in a hurry usually to get out. You can create a lot of particulate in your gowning rooms by not following the SOPs and doing the proper things, taking your gowns off. Appropriate behavior for controlled environments should also always be taught, understanding your process and the implications on contamination from your process. We're going to talk more about that later on. And then the proper disinfection techniques. What do companies do to fail to prevent particles? Well, they lack an effective environmental monitoring program that helps them determine the sources of contamination. A lot of companies, they'll buy the equipment, they'll monitor the particles, but they don't do anything with it. Okay? Lack of understanding of controlled environments. It's amazing how many companies have people that do not know about contamination and how to prevent it in controlled environments. I'm going to tell you, when I started in the industry, I knew next to nothing. I knew next to nothing. And there's a lot of companies still like that. And the lack of initial and continued training. Those are the most important things.